I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn to a ghost, I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk, so I'm letting them talk. Gotta keep quiet, maneuver in silence, to let them in, chalk up their body, another one body, that's just how it goes.
Hello and welcome to JK Plus One. I'm not your host, PTF. I don't know what what's he doing? He said someone was at his door. I don't know, in Brooklyn. I don't know if they were fixing something or who knows with that guy. I think he's probably mad about this guest because I think Pete thought he was the only guy in racing that wore a fedora. But if I'm not mistaken, this guest was rocking fedoras before Pete. I'm not throwing stones. I'm just saying that's what I think happened. I am your host, Jonathan Kinchin. And we are back-to-back weeks. I told you we had a little bit of a break, but we're back rolling now. We're going to roll all the way through the Breeders' Cup and probably through the end of the year. Maybe another missed week here or there. But thanks for listening. I want to thank our friends at Qatar Racing for their support. Qatar Racing, obviously a powerhouse overseas, very involved. But Sheikh Fahad and the team are really making some noise here in the U.S. Looking forward to seeing some of their stars show up here in the next few weeks, and also for Breeders' Cup. If you can, follow, subscribe, retweet, tweet, all those good things. It's always appreciated. Make sure you follow the In the Money feed. It's like the black background with like the logos with the hair and the hat. You can get all of the shows on In the Money Network, and then obviously you can follow the JK Plus One feed specifically as well. This week, someone I wanted to have on for quite some time, actually, and I mentioned it a little bit in this podcast, but, and sometimes when people win races and the post-race interview is going to be really boring and they're not going to really say anything, this person isn't one of those people, right? When he wins races, he's entertaining. He's fun, a lot of personality, the type of guy, in my opinion, that if you're sitting at home watching, it kind of makes you want to go to the races and be around. And that's my friend Doug O'Neill, two-time Kentucky Derby winning Doug O'Neill. We talk a little bit about I'll Have Another. We talk about Nyquist. We talk about the special super Lava Man, Little Golden Cents. We talk about it all. So we got about an hour here. I hope you enjoy it. And enough of me, Doug O'Neill. Doug, what's going on?
Good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing really well. When I do this podcast, I usually try to ask people around the person I'm talking to give me some good stories to tell them. My man, Jack Sisterson, didn't really help me much, but he did tell me to start the conversation by saying, "Hello, Gov."
Yeah, that definitely, with Jack, we miss Jack. He definitely classed the joint up, and we all were talking like, English, intelligent people around here while he was here. So we miss that.
Yeah, I had him on. He was a lot of fun. So we'll touch base on some of the horses he was around for. But I'm always interested how people kind of come to the game, especially if they weren't born into it. Like Dad wasn't a trainer. That whole deal. What brought you to the racetrack?
My dad, rest in peace. He passed away a number of years ago, but he loved horse racing. So as a kid, I was around the racing farm and around hearing stories about the track and all that stuff. So at age 10, we moved from Michigan, the great state of Michigan, to California. And literally the first weekend we were in California, we didn't go to the San Monica Pier, didn't go to Disneyland, and we went to the track, baby. So it was really my first glimpse of what I had been hearing. In Michigan, you had to be 14 to go to the track. So I'd never gone, but I fell in love with it. It was before all the off-track wagering, and there was 40,000 people or maybe more here at Santa Anita on that first time I came, and just was in awe of the equine athletes. Of the Bill Shoemaker was here. I had heard about him, got to see him like close up, and all the big name trainers and stuff. So I fell in love with it. And then I had a basketball coach and a mentor named Mike Amadei, who went to school with Jude Feld, and he had heard me talk about horse racing sometime in high school and said, "Man, if you ever want to see the locker room, if you will, the barn area, let me know and I'll hook you up with Jude," which he did. And started coming to the barn, and right out of high school, I went to work walking hots for Jude in Delmar, and pretty much haven't never looked back. I just I think being first generation, there's a lot of positives to that, because I had such a uh, just a hunger to learn and to be here and to see what made everything tick. And I think being born into it would definitely be a benefit as well. But you maybe don't get that added bonus of curiosity that you do when you first step into the barn area and you have no idea what the heck's going on. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell, that's my life, how I got back here.
So at what point do you remember kind of you got your first horse, and who was kind of the first guy that showed some, or gal that showed some support when it was time to kind of go out on your own?
Well, my brothers, Dennis and Danny, were always really supportive. They loved racing. My oldest brother, Dave, was intrigued by it, but never really got bit by the bug. But so, God, I probably a few years, maybe 3 years into grooming, my brother Dennis put a little group together, and then at that point I was assistant trainer for Doug Peterson, and Doug was cool with me having a couple on my own while I assisted him as well. And then I got a call from Bob Feld, Jude Feld's brother, and Bob said, "Hey, I got this buddy of mine. He's got like 4 or 6 horses at the time, I can't remember, looking for a trainer. His trainer just retired. Would you be interested?" And I was like, yeah. So I left Doug Peterson, took those horses. So I had like 6 on my own. And so that was probably, I was maybe 21 at the time, maybe. And it all goes so fast. And the mornings, especially early on, everything is just flying. So it is kind of like, I guess, going from grade school basketball to high school basketball to college basketball. Everything just gets a little bit faster when the waters get a little bit deeper. So, just learn to kind of swim in the deep end. And as you do learn that, then you can take on more horses and more responsibilities, and it becomes to make more sense. But yeah, just awesome to work alongside horses. And to me, at the time, I had, when I first went to work for Jude Feld right out of high school, I think he had like 30 horses at the time. And I think each and every one of them that had run before they were all NFL athletes to me, right? I was working alongside horses that I had seen compete, days or weeks before that. So I think if you have a love and passion for a racehorse, there's just no better place to be than working alongside them and helping them achieve the greatest that they can be.
And it's interesting because I feel like a lot of trainers, well, not a lot, but there's a handful of trainers kind of have to like start in kind of like the minor leagues and kind of work their way up. I mean, did you start training at Santa Anita, Hollywood Park, and Del Mar, or did you do a little Los Al to kind of get started, or were you always at the big show?
I was fortunate enough to start off in Southern California, Hollywood Park mainly. And I remember being on that trainer stand with the great Bobby Frankel and Charlie Whittingham and Laz Barrera. And I mean, just some like what in the world am I doing here? But, I had a lot of weaknesses, but one of my strengths was just shutting my mouth and listening. And just as the great Ron McAnally too is still with us, just listening to these guys talk was just, you felt like you should have paid, admission price to hear these guys talk. But it really, as you got more confident in yourself, you realized, as brilliant of horsemen as these guys were or are, they had to have the horse. And that's something that I think early on, as a younger trainer, you think, only Bob Baffert can win the big ones because, he knows how to do it. But in reality, as great of a trainer as the Bob Bafferts are, they're really good because they got really good horses, and they've got an eye for finding good horses, and they've got the smarts and the experience to what to look for. So that's something that as the game slows down and you get more comfortable in your skin of what you can do, then you really help yourself out by starting to select the athletes that you know you can do well with. So but that was a long answer to say I actually started here, but I did go up to Northern California. I was at Bay Meadows prior to them closing for about a year or so. I think I had my very first win ever was at actually it was at Golden Gate, a horse named Frank Prince. But yeah, it's really, there's so many great horsemen out there, and it's just a matter of getting a good horse that you surround them with good people, good shoer, good exercise rider, good groom, and a little bit of luck, and great things can happen.
I've always wondered about a lot of you Southern California guys. When the Rams are on TV, does it piss you off? Do you when there's a home game or the Chargers, do you get a little frustrated, or do you root for them?
It's funny. I actually, I'm a Lions fan, which I'm feeling good about that this year. Kind of dusting off some old Lions gear that I've been hiding out on. But yeah, it's for years LA didn't have an NFL team. So you're right. We got to see a variety of all the other teams every Sunday. But with the Rams and Chargers, they're both halfway decent. The Rams are actually better than what everyone was expecting, but there's no better. This is such a great time of year for me. I love NFL, and the hockey is starting back here in the next week or so. We got Major League Baseball playoffs, and then you got the Breeders' Cup right around the corner. So it's a great time of year, but makes it even better if you got a good racehorse in your shed, that's for sure.
Well, we'll go now before we go back then, but Ceiling Crusher, right? Pretty impressive filly. Are you thinking purple and gold with her and kind of targeting something in the first Saturday in November?
We would, but she wasn't nominated or made eligible, nominated, I guess, as a full. So it would cost $100,000 or more to make her eligible, and the owners have decided, and I don't blame them, not to write that big of a check. But so I'm not really sure. I think there's a race at Zia Park, the Zia Park Oaks or something, in middle or end of November. It's for 3-year-old only. It's going long. So I think that's kind of our tentative target. And then also there's a 7/8 against older fillies. I believe the La Brea, right when Santa Anita starts back up in December 26th. So those are a couple options, but yeah, she's a wonderful filly. And we got her after she broke her maiden so impressively. So I'd like to say we got her, we were placed on third base when we got her, because she was kind of a freak before we got her. And we were just, thanks to the owner's patience, been able to maintain her specialness. She's a beast of an individual, just to look at her, and just full of energy every day. When you lead her out there, to whether you're jogging, galloping, working, she gives you 100%. And yeah, it's been really amazing what she's done in the afternoons, other than one race where she kind of got in herself a little bit of trouble, and she's been pretty flawless, really.
Oh, it's one of those deals. It's just so crazy. It's like it reminds me of when I was at Keeneland one time, and I was hanging out in the green room where a lot of the bettors hang out, and this drunk guy from Canada spilt his champagne on my MacBook. Oh. And I didn't have Apple Care. It reminds me a lot of not nominating a horse for the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, no, it definitely it's a good analogy. It's a bummer, and
just pay the $300, right? Isn't it like $300?
It might be $500, but yeah, it's definitely it sure does it now with her. It seems really worth it, but I know, man, what and
there's nothing you can do about it, like, for next year either. It's going to be the same situation no matter what, right? There's no like open enrollment later, and you had to do it at the beginning, or you got to pay $100 to get her in there.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I don't know all the things, but I know it's yeah. I know I would have a hard time writing a big check like that for for just one race, right? So anything can happen in one race, and it's just too big of a risk. And getting that cotillion win, that grade 1 win, is so huge for her and her pedigree and her future residual value as a mama. So, but yeah, we'll be watching, and I'm sure whatever happens in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, we'll be thinking, we could have beat them, but
yeah. But I think the thing, I think the thing about that is like, I mean, just if I'm putting on the hat, if I was making the decision, if I was going to be the favorite, or if I was going to be the second choice, then I think it's an easier check to write.
Yeah.
But when you have to face the some of the older horses and some of the monsters that are probably, that I'm like,
Correct.
Clairières and the Nests and all of those, I think the check becomes a little bit more complicated. Maybe it's a 4-year-old, maybe she starts running off the screen with triple digit buyers and these things. And then, it makes a little bit more sense, but
well said. No, I'm with you, Jonathan. You're 100% right on that.
Your first grade 1, Skyjack. Tell us about Skyjack.
Wow. Well, he actually, one of my first clients, Renmar Farms, called me about taking him. Actually, they had him and a couple others with Bob Baffert, and Bob was kind of expanding, and he was getting a lot of horses and didn't have the stall space, and I said, of course. So it took Skyjack and a few others of Renmar from Bob at that time over from Hollywood Park, and yeah, that's just the craziest thing. He had, I think, 2 knee surgeries. He had like 2 colic surgeries. He was just a warrior. And every time you thought, well, he's going to have to retire now, and he'd come back and stronger than ever. So ironically, that first grade 1, the Hollywood Gold Cup, he beat Momentum for the great Paul Redham, who I didn't train for at the time. And Garrett Gomez was on Momentum, and we had Lafitte Pinkai and Skyjack, and gotta remember that race like it was yesterday. And then to fast forward, we were able to train for Paul and Zilla Redham is amazing. So yeah, that was a great time, a great race, and many great lucky stuff came upon me shortly after that. That's for sure.
You mentioned Paul Redham, and before we get to the 2 big horses, I wanted to talk a little bit about your first 2 starters in the Derby, and what maybe you learned from those 2, Liquidity and Great Hunter, that possibly influenced or impacted what you did eventually with I'll Have Another in Nyquist.
I think just the experience of it's such a whirlwind of a week or 2 going into it. So I think just being able to be part of that blizzard of attention, of excitement, of stress, of nervousness, of not wanting a hair out of place, for the horses. So I think that was super helpful for all of us mentally. But I think the one beauty of starting off in California, we're so blessed for the most part to have beautiful weather on a daily basis, and seeing the Whittinghams and the Frankels and the top trainers every day just open gallop and work. And, you just really, I was brought up around a old school train type of thing. So I think that really benefited me the most as we got lucky and got a horse like, and I'll Have Another, was just not to nurse him into the race and be happy to be there, but to continue on with some serious exercise, going into it. And there was a few people that were chirping that I was training the horse too hard or doing too much or this and that, and you never know till if he would have got beat, I probably would have questioned it. But we just went at it strong, and good open gallops and strong breezes, and he seemed as ready as he could be, and got it done.
So, I want to talk I'll Have Another, and then we'll go to Nyquist. But the thing about a funny thing, and I think I've told you this when we've just been like, in a racetrack hanging out. But it's funny when I was just a pure fan I flew in like a night early. I was flying standby. I flew in a night early, and I got like a room at the Galt House before my friends came, like on a Tuesday night. It was like $99 that night, $9,000 on Thursday night. And I stayed at the Galt House, and I saw you in that kind of that atrium area.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, I'd never seen you before except for like on HRTV or TVG or whatever. And I remember kind of working up the courage to come over and say hello and tell you good luck. And then I walked away from you and you were very appreciative and very nice. And then I walked away, and I thought to myself, why did I tell him good luck? I want Bodemeister to win. And you know, and I'll Have Another obviously was super impressive. I think that one of the most impressive things to me about your two Derby winners, and we can talk about I'll Have Another first, is the fact that they won so early in their careers, going such short distances, but then they went on to be so good going a mile and a quarter.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, they were just both so fit, so ready, and they were battle tested. You know, the straight maidens out here, you know, even though they've gotten a little short, the fields have gotten a little short, but just like Saratoga and Kentucky, and you know, I mean, if you can win a straight maiden early on, you know, you got a pretty special horse, and then whether or not he could carry it, that was the biggest thing. Being by Flower Alley, you didn't know. He was such a great racehorse, Flower Alley, but didn't really have that much success as a stallion. But I'll Have Another was displaying special stuff on a daily basis, and I remember Mario coming to work him maybe about 3 weeks before the Bob Lewis Stakes, and I didn't really know Mario at the time, and I knew his agent, and his agent had told me the following morning that Mario said, well, I'm definitely not going to ride that one. And Ivan Puhich was his agent. He said, why do you say that, kid? He's an older fella, Ivan at the time. Why did you say that? And he said, that horse is way too good for my first mount in that barn to be on that particular horse. And lo and behold, it was, and he got it done at a big price in the Bob Lewis. So, yeah, he was a special horse, and unfortunately, he hasn't carried it on as a stallion. His offspring hasn't nearly been anything close to what he was as a racehorse. But yeah, and as you talk about the Galt House, God, man, we had some good times there at the Galt House and that was Jack and Steve, and we had a real crew with us surrounding the horses, and when the horses were fed and bedded down comfortably, we would go have a good time there at the Galt House and celebrate everything that was going on around us. That's for sure.
Were you confident going into I'll Have Another's Derby? Were you nervous? Did you think I need things to kind of go my way, or were you in one of those positions where you're like, I cannot believe they're going to allow this horse to go off at this price? Where did you kind of fit the morning of the race?
I was pretty darn confident, and you know, thanks to Paul and Zilla, they were so cool about, you know, we kind of had a little posse that went with us to Kentucky, so we were all not in our heads too much and overthinking too much, and just living in the moment, and realizing that this horse had just run a couple crazy monstrous races going into the Derby, and he was just ripping around Churchill Downs Derby week. So we were confident. We were all pretty loose, and you know, we weren't overthinking it, and we were definitely, we drew whatever we drew, the 19 hole, right? We were number 19, so we were in the parking lot. But as it turned out, that was really a good place to be, to stay out of all kinds of chaos that might ensue if you're down on the inside. So I would say the morning of, we were feeling pretty confident, but we were probably also a little bit hungover.
Understandably so. You talked about, and I remember hearing this too, and I don't, you know, just as a fan and like, you know, and as a horse player, hearing that, you know, when I'll Have Another ran so well, and one of the reasons it was just like, well, Doug O'Neill just, you know, it's like sub 2 minute clipping him around there, and I remember when I got to Nyquist, I remembered that. Is that something that you've always done from a training standpoint, or is that people misunderstanding what you're doing, or Is that something kind of that you pride yourself on for the success you've had in the Derby?
I definitely credit that to the success we've had with those two horses in Derby. And I also credit the late Doug Peterson, who I only worked for him for about 6 months. But I remember the first day I was assistant trainer and got on the pony, went down to the track, and it was funny. Doug would always, if it was 95 degrees, he'd have like a 3-piece suit on. If it was 50 degrees, he'd have a t-shirt on. He was always a little bit wacky with old Mother Nature, but he was down there sucking on a cigar and told me to jog the horse off and then let him go, and told the kid to, good, comfortable gallop. So I was like, this will be interesting. And he never had more than about 12 horses, it seemed like, Doug. So I didn't really pay attention to him prior to working for him. And son of a gun, this horse just started ripping around the track. And I remember thinking, oh God, he's going to yell at the rider. He's going to yell at me. We're all getting yelled at here. I don't know what. And came back and Doug was like, that was perfect. Great. And I'm like, wow. All right. And so he kind of had that mentality of letting him let a horse put their feet where they want to put them, and get them on and off the track as quickly as you can. Last thing you want to do is have them out there too long. And anyway, it was kind of a wacky mindset, but man, I saw a lot of horses get good in the short period of time I worked for him with that training method. And I adopted it right away. And as I went on my own, I had some pretty good success with some lesser horses by just doing that, letting them put their feet where they want to put them. Now it is different nowadays because of all the protocols and stuff. You've got to, I've been forced to back off a little bit on that, but there was no doubt if I had my own training center and wasn't, didn't have to worry about, there's vets on every corner watching your horses train. So you've got to kind of reel everything in and not overdo anything, or you'll get red flagged or whatever. So times have changed and we're changing with the times, but yeah, I 100% believe in good open gallops. And I think they learn to breathe properly, as they do in a racing setting. They get on and off the track a little bit quicker, which a lot of them like that. And they stay sounder longer, I think. But it's definitely something both Nyquist and I'll have another did quite often, and they were pretty fit and ready to roll when we let them over there.
We talked a little bit with Jack about the unfortunate. Well, let's back up. Let's go Preakness first before we go Belmont. Look, I was of the belief, just, you grew up on the racetrack. You've been around horses. You've had horses like Golden Sense, and you know what speed can do. I was of the belief the way the Derby was run, the way that Bodemeister ran, and the fact that he was hooked by Triniberg and ran really fast, and you were to run him down, I thought in the Preakness he'd have a chance to kind of have more comfortable fractions and would be tough for I'll Have Another to catch. Were you fearful of that? Or at that point, did I'll Have Another show you enough that you were confident that he would be able to beat Bodemeister regardless of the circumstances?
Again, I think just the looseness we all had and the confidence in the horse, it made sense shortening up, coming back in 2 weeks, that the speed of Bodemeister would be really tough to run down. And but I mean, we were feeling it. And I'll Have Another, I think we walked him 3 days and we jogged him maybe a day or two, and then he started ripping around the Pimlico track, and he was loving it. So he was training and galloping like he didn't miss a beat from the Derby. So now we definitely, come Preakness morning, we were feeling pretty good that we were gonna be the horse to beat, and sure shoot, he got it done again. So it was a lot of just the horse was in his zone, and he was surrounded by a lot of positive people that were feeling it and pulling for him, and everything was just clicking perfectly at that time.
And obviously, I would imagine that in your career, one of the most disappointing moments had to be what happened up in New York And so I wanted to obviously get your feeling about what that week was like. But I also want to point out that when I had Jack Sisterson, he mentioned that experience was significantly easier because of how the Redhams responded to all of it. Just how engaging they were with you and your staff, and making sure that the event still stayed fun despite the horrible news. Tell me a little bit about kind of how that week unfolded, and did you feel like you technically probably could have run them, but it wasn't the right thing to do? Just wherever you want to go with it.
Yeah, no, I know I got so many feelings through that, because that was, I remember they set up, I had lunch with, oh God, no, I'm going to forget his name. Sorry, this is embarrassing, but the trainer of Seattle Slew, he just passed. God darn it! But
I'm a horrible historian. So
I'm so bad. But he could not have been Billy Turner. Sorry, Billy Turner. So I had lunch with Billy maybe a week before the Belmont, and he was also, now ironically, this is just to talk about a small world thing here. So Doug Peterson cut his teeth working for Billy Turner, and actually Doug Peterson, the owners ended up firing Billy, or Billy quit, and they gave the Seattle Slew to Doug Peterson towards the end of his career, and Doug won some race with him. But so Doug kind of learned his open gallop mentality from Billy. So so as I had lunch with him, I was just in awe. He couldn't have been cooler. And and I had said to Billy, because the one thing about Belmont, it's just such a unique, the Big Sandy, right? It's a deeper track, much more a different surface than what Santa Anita and Churchill and Preakness and Pimlico are. So, but he was adamant, do not change what got you here. You're going to probably hear people say you should just walk them or jog them, or just nurse them into the race. I wouldn't do it, and I loved hearing that, because that was my big thing too. Is I'm just going to continue to do what got us here, but at the same time, as I look back, what created the inflammation in the tendon was more than likely continuing those fast gallops on a deeper surface. And so, I kicked myself a little bit that, God, we could have probably loaded. I'll have another backwards, and I probably could have walked him from the Preakness to the Belmont, and he would have won. But I just kind of kept with the same training regiment that got us there, and son of a gun.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, in horse racing, and I think as a trainer and also as like a horse player, and I think just in life in general, I think we often become too results oriented, where you've developed a process that you believe in for a reason.
Yep.
And when that process bites you in the ass from time to time, there's this knee-jerk reaction to change the process.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily, but you never, here's the thing. If you started listening to other people before the Preakness or before the Derby, and started listening to other people's criticism, and maybe not doing what you wanted to do, you might not even gotten to that spot anyways. So it's like, to me, I get it. I mean, maybe, you find yourself in that position again. Maybe if Nikos would have went on, maybe you do that. Maybe you do something different. But I don't know. Look, I can understand your position of kicking yourself a little bit, but also, what are you going to do?
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I agree. And like Jack had told you, I think, I had to make that phone call with Paul. It was, top 10, maybe top 5 worst phone calls you can make to an owner. He couldn't have been, he was disappointed, of course, but we just quickly got into the celebrating everything that had gone on to get us there. And, as I figured he was going to pack his bags and run to the airport and get home, he was like, nope, we're going to celebrate this great day, and we're going to go enjoy the race and root on, he handled it with so much class, which made any whining I may have wanted to do quickly disappear. And we even prayed, at him into the winner's circle there. The NYRA people asked us if we would. We said, oh, of course. So, he still got a chance to go over there, and people got a chance to root him on, and we got a chance to be with him as we were rooting him on too. So it was a gut-wrenching moment, but also a great moment and a great learning moment, and something I'll never forget. That's for sure.
Fast forward to Nyquist. Would you say you were more confident in the first Saturday in May when you woke up there in Louisville at the Gald House, probably a little hungover that time too, with Nyquist, or were you more confident with I'll Have Another?
Oh, more confident with Nyquist, because with I'll Have Another, we were blindly confident. Until you win the Derby, that's another thing. You just feel like, okay, that only, you got to have 3 or 4 in there to try to get one home, right? It just seems when you got 20 lined up, so many things have to go your way, and only having one in there by Flower Alley or that. So I would say, but going in there with Nyquist, undefeated, he had gate speed. We were feeling even more confident with him, and but at the same time, same thing. You had so many things that have to go your way, and fortunately they did. But yeah, that was something that after 2012 with I'll Have Another, never thought I'd ever experienced that high in horse racing, and boom, here we were in 2016 with a similar feeling. It was pretty incredible.
I think the other crazy part about it too for me is I'm sure it meant a lot to you as well. It's kind of what I felt when Johnny finally won a Derby for Todd. It's like winning those Derbies for Mr. and Mrs. Redham, considering how much support they had given you as their trainer, and how much, obviously we know how loyal they are, and I say that is because of their commitment to ride, a rider like Mario, who is, he's no Irad Ortiz. He doesn't have the success that Irad has, but they stick by him, and they were rewarded for that. I think that says a lot about them as owners.
100%. And I'm sure I should have been fired numerous times, and they've been super loyal to me. So now they're just wonderful people, and they love the sport. I always say they would do the sport even if there was no purse money. Thank God there's purse money involved, but they just love watching horses progress, watching them compete at a high level, and man, they sure have. They've employed a lot of people, and like you say, they're super loyal to a lot of people, and just that's my greatest win ever, was being able to be called one of their trainers, because it's just you just know you can do right by the horse, be patient, or run a horse right back. You can do what you think is in the best interest, and if it doesn't work, they'll never second guess you, and they're just they're great. And like you say, to get lucky and win 2 Derbies for them is just doesn't get any better.
They got great silks too. I'm a silks guy. If you have bad silks, it really annoys me. They have great silks.
They do. They're legendary. Yeah, no, I agree. They're subtle, they're classy, and it's very fitting, because Paul's a classy man, good man.
Now, I'm sure that obviously the Belmont with I'll Have Another was disappointing, but man, I gotta say, it was probably a little disappointing is the race that Hot Rod Charlie ran a few years back to not win that Belmont has to be in your top 5 of disappointing New York moments.
Yeah, you're right. we're so proud and so excited. We almost treated it like we won, because the fractions they were setting and he was setting, and to continue on and be there right at the wire was just phenomenal. And that was such a cool run with Hot Rod Charlie, and of course my nephew Patrick and Greg and Bill and the whole crew. It was just he had a lot of good chapters in the old Hot Rod Charlie book, and took us a lot of cool places. And I remember the Mike Pegram, Bob Baffert's big owner, once saying years ago that the beauty of being involved with the top racehorses, you end up going to places you never normally would have went to, and Hot Rod Charlie so sure took us to a few of those places. So very, very cool.
Doug, I like I said, I got pretty involved. I was I started 2005 when Giacomo won. It was like I was in college and I had 5 across the board and I bought the keg beer that day and then I ordered some books and then I started reading some of the handicapping books and then I started watching and taping HRTV and watching the handicapping shows and my fandom really started around then. So I kind of I feel like I kind of caught I was very still learning when Lava Man was doing what Lava Man did. And I can look at the past performances and I can still try to comprehend what happened there. But I was hoping you could kind of help me out a little bit and kind of tell me the Lava Man story, because I can appreciate it now coming from you because I didn't get to really feel it knowing what I know now. Like what went into the claim and just how the hell did he get so good?
Yeah, that's he's a horse that Steve Kenley, the Kenleys, and then Jason Wood were the ones who claimed him and owned him. But it was Steve Kenley who loved him down at Del Mar. He was in for, I think, 62.5, and I nixed it. And then he came back in for 50. And Steve basically said, if you don't like him, don't worry, I'll call somebody else. And I was like, yeah. And, he was a horse that won for like maiden 12.5 up north, blah, blah, blah. But Steve Kenley's still is a big numbers guy, rag numbers guy. Claimed him and big, good looking horse. He was in great shape, but he was a big, solid horse with big feet that were a little troublesome. And we had the great shoer who's retired now, a guy named Jimmy Jimenez. And Jimmy was just magical the way he kept his feet sound and proper and happy. And so he he was just a solid horse. I don't know, he was a Calbred. So that was my big thing is, we got a solid Calbred. And the brain surgeon I actually ran him for 80, I believe, 80 or 100 claimer early on in his 4-year-old career. And he won. Thank God he didn't get claimed. But he was early on when we had him. Honestly, I thought he was a solid horse, but I didn't think he would run more than probably 5 or 6 times before we were going to have to give him some time off to let him grow some foot. But I think he ran steady for us. Jesus, maybe for about 4 years. So it was pretty remarkable and exceptional in so many ways. And a lot of credit to Jimmy Jimenez keeping him sound all those times. That old cliche, no foot, no horse, is so true. And Jimmy just kept him with really good, solid, healthy feet.
What was kind of his, look, we can talk about horses' attributes and what they were really good at and all the good ones. Oh, that one was really fast. That one had turn of foot. That one didn't like getting beat. What were kind of his, what were his attributes that made him, as good as he was?
Well, he had gate speed and he had extremely competitive and tons of class. He was smart too. He's just he was a thinker, always just doing things around the barn that we were like, really? There was at times where you thought he should be working at like a petting zoo or something. And then you see him on the track and he's just an absolute warrior. So, he was just exceptional in so many ways. Having some great riders get on him too. Garrett Gomez, the late Garrett Gomez, the Hall of Famer now, Corey Nakatani and Pat Valenzuela. Just to see these guys would be in awe of where he would put them at the 3/8 pole, and then you could ask him, and he had a couple gears from there. And so, as we all would see it with our eyes, just hearing the great Nakatani and P-Val and Gomez talk about, what they would be sitting underneath or what would be underneath them. And when they would call on him, the way he would just explode at that late of a race was pretty exceptional. So he's just unique, one of a kind. Hopefully we can land another one like him, but it'd be hard to ever get one close to running the way he did for as long as he did.
You mentioned gate speed with him. You mentioned it with Nyquist, and when I have trainers, I always like to, I like to try to I love the stories. I like to try to gain some knowledge as well. What attribute do you feel it creates that gate speed? Is it a mental thing, right? The ability to kind of fire away from there when the bell rings, when the doors open. Is it a physical thing? Is it a rear end? Is it a back end thing? What do you kind of think? You would what trait would you kind of tie in with a horse having gate speed?
That's a great question. I would say part of it is the way they're broke. You'll get some horses that they'll stand in there and they follow those doors so quickly that even if they don't have a lot of natural speed, they leave quicker than others who, maybe aren't as comfortable or aren't as well schooled in the gate. So I think good gate schooling is key. And then you get kind of a lot of times too, riders, the great Pat Valenzuela was just so exceptional with he would stay off their mouth. He would just grab a handful of mane and the reins would be loose. And he would just try to have their head right in the V of the gate, pointed, right up the backside there, wherever they were breaking from, and just let them break on their own. And it's amazing how quickly they can leave there if you do that. So just trying to stay off their mouth and letting them break naturally. And, is so key. But the gate crew does a wonderful job because as we get horses that aren't real comfortable in there, we try to school them as much as we can. And the more relaxed they are and the more the rider can stay off their mouth, more than likely, the better they're going to be positioned, early on in the race.
Well, I think if we're going to talk speed, we probably should talk a little bit about Golden Sense. I mean, that was an exceptional horse. Were you concerned about the distance for him, Derby wise? Did you feel like this horse is so talented, so fast, we don't have a choice, we have to try to see what we can get accomplished here? What did you think?
Yeah, he was so gifted and had so much, like you say, so much speed. A mile and a quarter every now and then, if you can, though it's impossible really in the Derby to talk, you're going to walk the dog, but if you could somewhere or another cruise around there early and turn it into a mile dash home, we thought, we knew things were just going to have to go exceptionally well. But it was still a great experience. We had Kevin Krieger, who was so great, of Glenn and Glenn Sorgenstein, who had Golden Sense, and him and his partners were cool enough to leave Kevin Krieger, who didn't have the street name, if you will, to be a Derby rider. We knew he had the ability to be a Kentucky Derby rider, and we knew he knew Golden Sense really well. So that was a great experience. We didn't get the results we wanted, but it was still a wonderful time, and wouldn't trade it for anything. It was a good moment for us.
Yeah, and you talked a little bit about I'll Have Another, and the fact that he wasn't really, he didn't turn out to be the daddy that he was runner. But Golden Sense, on the other hand, he's had a little bit of success.
Whew, man, they're runner, and they'll sprint, route, turf, dirt, anything. Yeah, and he had so much natural speed that I think you just see a lot of his offspring have that, and he had tons of fight in him too. He it is cool to see the offspring of Golden Sense do as well as they're doing, and to continue to do it well. So it's fun to be, you're getting old when you start seeing even, mares that are by horse they used to train, or you start seeing second dams they used to train. So it's pretty cool.
And you talked about kind of letting your horses kind of put their feet where they want to put them. I would imagine he used to roll around there in the morning as fast as he was.
he would literally, there would be times where the clockers would call and did you just work him? I'm like, no, he didn't work. But yeah, he would go sometimes sub 15, eighth of a mile gallops around there. So, but that Johnny Garcia, who galloped all these guys, and that was probably it's hard to say. Nyquist, he was definitely our one we loved the most for whatever reason. But Golden Sense he was fun to watch train, and for Johnny, he was fun to watch, or fun for him to ride. But yeah, he would clip around there super comfortably, and more times than not, couldn't blow out a match, 30 seconds after he was done training. He was just so fit and ready to do whatever we asked him to do.
He's one of those horses that really taught me a lesson in speed. He's the type of horse that helped me figure out turf sprints. He's the type of horse that helped me realize that Knicks Go wasn't going to get beat that year. He's the kind of horse that made me understand why American Pharoah was able to do what he was able to do, Justify. He's one of those horses that ran so damn fast that if you were even kind of close to him, you were in trouble. And he took the kick away from the closers because they were going faster than they were comfortable going, because it's so hard to judge from back there how fast he was going in front of you. You didn't want to let him get too far away from you because you knew how good he was. He was the horse that I would say taught me that speed is the best weapon that you can have in dirt racing in this game.
I agree. And it's really speed kills, right? It's hard to make up ground. If you get two equal horses and one's got that natural gate speed, it's hard to pass them up. So, he was cool, and we're always looking for more those kind of horses, because they're, you keep them fit and happy, and every time you lead them over there, you feel like you got a big chance.
Doug, I Fleet Street Dancer. Did you go to Japan for that race?
We did. Yeah, went with the Leathermans, and I think he was just gelded. I don't think we gelded him. I think they gelded him the race before we claimed him, and holy mackerel, was he a beast of a horse. And that was still the most remarkable thing, because I swear, even when they put the photo up on the screen after the race, it looked like we lost, and but they said we won. And it was a $2 million race. And in Japan, it's horse racing, baseball, cigarettes, and beer. That's kind of their top four things over there, it seems like, from my standpoint. But we had such a wonderful time, and they really rolled out the red carpet for us. And I think we were like 50-1. Japan really rolls out the red carpet for you when you get lucky enough to have a good horse to send over there, and this was no exception. And yeah, we just had a great time, and then to win that race on top of it was just an incredible experience, something I'll never forget.
What's that shipping like? I guess they go left from California, and how long did it take?
It was a long time for us humans, so I would imagine it's probably a good 15-20 hours. I don't know. It was a long ways, but I know Fleet Street settled in well, and we had, I remember just crazy weather. It was like a monsoon type of weather the day he ran. And I remember even calling my shoer, Jimmy Jimenez, who did magic with Lava Man, wondering what I should do shoeing wise. And he's like, leave him alone. But he's either going to handle it or he's not. You start putting different type of mud nails and turn downs, and all you're going to do is, screw up his gait. So we left him alone. He was pretty much flat shod. And man, he skipped right over. He was a big horse too, and he skipped right over the wetness of the track and got it done.
Doug, so often when you talk to these trainers who've had a lot of success, one thing you could really get them going on is talking to them about their longtime assistants, and you have a guy that's been with you and through a lot of your successes. What did Leandro mean does he mean to your operation?
God, he is everything. I mean, he is just such he's a great friend. He's like family. And B, he's been around horses his whole life. So he's just, he's such a great horseman and such a great part of our team. And I remember early on in my training, and Brian Mayberry, who he worked for years, who was such a wonderful, great trainer and did magic with young horses. I remember seeing Leandro with Brian Mayberry and thinking, God, it'd be great to have an assistant like that. And And then when he came free and I was able to grab him, other than Lava Man, he would be the greatest claim I've ever made. And yeah, he's just and as great as a horseman he's just a great person. And you need great leaders that way for all the men and women that are on the team that are working alongside the horses. And he's just, it's hard to put into words how important men and women like Leandro are to a big stable. And he's all the success we've had. It's all credit to him and keeping it all together.
The last thing I wanted to try to get, before we get out of here is and I know you got to be political sometimes here, but you mentioned the short field. From a, if you had a chance to hop on top of a soapbox here, is there anything that you wish that you guys would be doing differently out in California, or some things that you feel like could potentially help with that issue? Like I said, without necessarily I'm not trying to get you to throw anyone under the bus or anything. Just if you had any kind of creative ideas that could kind of rectify that issue.
Yeah, we're in the beautiful state of California where there's, it is got so much to offer, and but at the same time, you got 60,000 homeless people in downtown LA. And what frustrates me is the amount of men and women who have chosen to work alongside horses that these horses are revered on a daily basis. And it frustrates me that we don't sell that part of the sport, especially in California here. And, we try, there's different organizations that try, but I do feel like we're beaten up a lot in the local media. And I think that creates a difficult environment to get new fans out here and stuff. So, there's a lot. I would change Santa Anita Racetrack to the Santa Anita Equestrian Center, and I would have other, sporting horses be here as well, and just really try to celebrate the horse and the men and women who work alongside it. And I think it's just so much beauty and so much greatness about it, instead of, it seems like we're always talking about, an injury here or there, which in any kind of sport that's going to happen. Right. And so that would be my, if I was the Santa Anita manager hat on, that's what I would focus on, would be to really try to spread the news of the greatness that goes on a daily basis here, and all the men and women who have chosen to work alongside them. And some people might not want to work alongside a horse, but it doesn't mean that we can't really honor the men and women who do decide to do that. So that's my pitch.
Well, Doug, I look, I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's a busy job, but we appreciate you. I've always, even before we became friendly and I got to meet you, I've always been a fan from afar. There's nothing like a boring post-race interview with some guy with no personality after winning a race that makes you want to go to the races, right? But it's obviously not the same when you get a mic in front of your mouth.
John, you're the man. I appreciate you saying that. And not only your friend, I'm a big fan of yours too. I got some of your shirts in my closet. So
there you go. If you need any more, just let me know. I'll bring them out. I'm coming out for Breeders' Cup. I'll drop them off at the barn for you.
You're the best, man. I'd be honored, man. I really appreciate you having me on, and I love listening to these, and I never thought I'd be on it. So I appreciate you letting me on here.
Thanks, Doug. We'll talk soon.
You got it, brother. Take care.
Okay, take care. That was a lot of fun. Doug, I appreciate you taking the time. Wow. It's crazy to me that to have two Derby winners, same owners, same jockey. It's a nice little formula I think they found over there with the white and the purple silks. I told you I like those silks. Good silks. I want to thank Doug again for taking the time. I want to thank our friends at Guitar Racing for supporting the podcast. Looking forward to seeing what the maroon and gold are going to unleash come the first Friday and Saturday of November for the Breeders' Cup. Should be a lot of fun. I want to thank them again for their support. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you follow, subscribe, retweet, tweet, like, comment, share, all that good stuff. That's it's how it all unfolds over here for us. Making sure everybody is involved. I want to thank PTF. I want to thank Drew, and want to thank everyone else at In the Money for putting out content for all of us to consume. I'm a listener as well. I do a lot of flying, so I like to listen to podcasts. So I want to thank everyone again. We'll check you out next week.
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn to a ghost, I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk, so I'm letting them talk.